He is Vincent Goodwill. He was busy yesterday on social media. NBA senior reporter for Yahoo Sports, host of the Good Word podcast on Yahoo Sports. You were raving about Cooper Flagg yesterday. You're sitting in first class on the hype train here?
Absolutely. And I'm not someone that is a Duke fan. I am not someone who stands for what they stand for. As a basketball person, I abhor them. But as far as Cooper Flagg, watching what he did as a 17-year-old, he doesn't turn 18 until late December, but seeing that he belonged in day one, from what I understood, and then in day two, he started to make that impact. I mean, Dan, not to make this bigger than what it is, but can you remember the last white American-born basketball player to go into college with hype train and then come into the NBA and exceed the hype? Because that, to me, goes back to Larry Bird, and I feel like it's been too long. Maybe Cooper Flagg is the next one.
Well, Bird didn't have the same kind of fanfare going to Indiana because Indiana was loaded back then at the time. He went there and he was overwhelmed. I mean, they had Buckner and, they had all those great players,
Right.
great teams. And then Bird, decided to work on a garbage truck and then went to Indiana State. It was the hype after that going into the NBA. But we're talking about 17 going into college. I mean, he could go to the NBA. He would have been the first pick in the NBA draft this year, I'm guessing, by all accounts.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can't remember the last time that we've had a consensus after a bad draft. We're going to have a historic draft with the number one pick, and teams are already setting themselves up. Like Danny Ainge in Utah right now is salivating at the prospect of getting Cooper Flagg in Salt Lake City.
Okay, but what are the players saying about him? The NBA players, the Olympians.
Well, I think they knew. Like, it's one thing to know a guy, you got to think about the Nike Hoop Summits and the AAU circuits that these guys have been playing on. He sort of shot up like a rocket over the past year and a half, where John Shire, like this kid is from Maine. He's not from necessarily the easiest part of America to get to. But once Duke coach John Shire got to him and you got to see him on the AAU circuits, everybody gets to see. Remember, LeBron has an AAU team. All these other guys have AAU teams that they cultivate themselves. So yesterday, I think you got to see, like, there was this one sequence, Dan. He walked down Anthony Davis for a three, and then they tried to lob it ahead to AD. He broke that up. And somehow, in one fell swoop, someone shot a three, and he streaked down the court. This isn't sneaky athleticism. He is an athlete. He streaked down the court with a tip in over Bam and getting a foul at the same time. Like, those are pro plays for a guy who was 17 years old. Like, those guys were raving about him. I think there's a point where someone like that, if he shows up to the U.S. select team, you're trying to see if he belongs. You're trying to see how he fits. And then after day one, I think they're like, oh, okay, he belongs on the same floor with us. And yesterday was the day that he really asserted himself.
If not the United States for the gold medal, then who?
Have you seen the Eiffel Towers in France? I don't think anybody is scoring on Rudy Gobert and Big Slim, Victor Wembanyama. Like, I don't even know the names of their guards, right? I don't know if I have to know the names of their guards. I just know that if you can't score, you can't win. And that's why you have Joel Embiid and Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis. And you might have to run all three of those dudes out there at the same time against those two big jokers.
Who's the most important player on Team USA?
I would say Kevin Durant, because he's a nuclear weapon. Like, he is their ace in the hole. Like, he's the all-time U.S. men's Olympic scorer, all-time U.S. men's Olympic scorer by average and, tournaments and everything else. The fact that he can get his shot at any point, Dan, without you having to run anything for him. He doesn't necessarily fit inside of an offense. He can exist outside of an offense. I think he's just the one weapon that you can't have someone guard for. You can't game plan for him, assuming he's healthy. Like, he's been sitting out with a calf strain. I don't think it's anything serious. Nobody's really concerned. It's more precautionary measure. He was back on the floor yesterday. So I would expect him to be, whether he's a starter or he comes off the bench like a super sub, I would expect him to be the most important guy, because if he gets it going, I think that puts some distance between the U.S. and everybody else.
Vincent Goodwill covers the NBA for Yahoo Sports, host of the Good Word podcast on Yahoo Sports. More likely to underrate when we look back on their careers, Kevin Durant or Steph Curry?
Oh, that's easy. It's Kevin Durant. I think we have framed him in terms of his choices as opposed to how great of a player that he is and was in his prime. And it's hard for people to contextualize this, but think about it from this standpoint. The year after they made the NBA Finals in Oklahoma City, Russell Westbrook gets his knee taken out by Patrick Beverley. Oklahoma City was the best team going into the 2013 playoffs. And because there was no Russ, Oklahoma City got taken out. Then Oklahoma City gets taken out in 15 because Kevin Durant has a Lisfranc injury. And then we saw what happened in 2016. That's all that bad luck before Kevin Durant goes to Golden State and wins those 2 titles, and then has the next bad luck with the Achilles, and then the next bad luck with the Brooklyn Nets and his toe on the line. Like, he's had 2 championships, and we could very well be talking about 4 or 5 had things broken a certain way, and he's still very close to the top of his game at age 36.
I know we like to do lists, and I do it on the show as well. I think you have to take Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain out of modern-day basketball, and it might not be fair to them, but I kind of started with Bird and Magic, and then you look at your top 10 list. And at some point we have to take Larry Bird out of there, perhaps, or we're going to take him out eventually. I mean,
Why?
Well, if I'm looking at resume. Does Steph Curry have a better resume than Larry Bird? Will Kevin Durant have a better resume? Tim Duncan has a better resume, right?
Tim Duncan is historically underrated.
What about the Joker? If Joker wins another MVP, let's say he wins another title. Now, I know if he does, but Jerry West is coming out. Oscar's going to come. Somebody got it. You can't have 15 in the top 10.
Well, I think we have to put some respect on these old guys' name. Like, Larry Bird won 3 straight MVPs during an uber competitive portion of the NBA. And the 4th year where he didn't win the MVP was better than the 3rd when he won the MVP for the 86 Celtics. If you think about this, and I'm not saying
Are
that
you
I'm
old
making
school?
the case.
Are you old school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But you're not old. You're just old school.
Well, black don't crack, but my age ain't cracking yet. You know what I mean, Dan?
Let's guess how old Vincent is. All right.
Okay, let's get
all right, Paulie, how old do you think Vincent is?
This is tough. He's got a deep grown man voice, but he does not look old.
Hair looks pretty good.
His hair looks good. Yeah. I'm going to go 39.
39. Seton?
I'm going to go 33.
Wow. Marvin?
Vincent looks like my man from high school. He looks like somebody I went to high school with.
So he's 39?
No, he's 40. He's 40 on the dot.
Okay. Todd?
37.
I'm going to go 41.
I will be 40 on December 4th.
Okay.
39.
Nailed it.
Nice.
All right.
You're still young.
I'm amazed that somebody didn't guess younger because it's hard in these streets when you're 25 and you look 18. You know what I mean?
We gave you 33.
Dating scene back then.
Stop begging. We gave you 33. Somebody gave you 33. Okay, so somebody's got to come out. Jerry West got to come out. Oscar's going to come out. Who else is going to come out of the top 10? Because somebody's going in. Joker may go in. Steph Curry's going in. KD's probably going in, I'm guessing.
I don't know if KD is going in, but I think Steph is going in. I think Steph's resume. And I think the one thing we have to take into account, I judge top 10 by how great were you at your peak, not necessarily the length of your career, just because of all the advantages that guys have today in terms of recovery and travel and all these other medicines and advantages that the league has put in place so that guys can play longer than ever. I want to know, how great were you when you were at your absolute best? And I don't know if there were too many people greater than the Larry Birds of the world when he was at his absolute best, or better than Kareem at his absolute best. You got to do some real work at the top of your top.
Okay, but is Bird's best better than Magic's best?
No, it's not. But Bird's best came earlier because Bird was an older rookie. Okay. So he hit his peak quicker than Magic. Magic's peak came from 87 to 91. Bird's peak was 83 to 87.
How about Bird's best, LeBron's best?
Now we're cooking. Yeah. Because look, the Birdman was a better shooter, a better rebounder, a comparable passer, and a really good team defender. LeBron at his peak might be the second best player we've ever seen in the history of our lives.
So Jordan, we can't even mention him. So Kobe's in top 10 and LeBron's in the top 10.
Are we sure Kobe's in top 10?
Ooh. Okay. You don't think so?
Are we sure?
I'm going to ask you. I think so. I'd put in Kobe before I would Oscar. I'd put him in before Jerry West.
Probably.
So
what about Hakeem Olajuwon? What about Tim Duncan? Do you put him in before those guys?
Yes. Tim might be a little higher. I think Hakeem Olajuwon
put him in over Shaquille O'Neal, the best of Shaquille O'Neal. Might have been the most dominant player we've ever seen for a 7-year stretch.
Man. It's like Bird and Magic are together and Kobe and Shaq are together, whether they want to be together or not. I think Hakeem Olajuwon's the most underrated player. Him and Elgin Baylor that I ever watched.
There is a small point guard in Detroit that will have a argument for best underrated player.
I'll give you that. Yeah, Michael Jordan won't co-sign on that though.
We don't have to worry about him.
You know, no, Vincent, you always have to worry about Michael Jordan. Always.
That's a good point.
No,
that's a good point.
But we brought this up the other day, a couple of weeks ago. The sport that has a harder time getting out from underneath the shadow of its greatest player, Tiger with golf and MJ with the NBA. Does it seem like it's a foregone? I mean, it is Tiger with golf? Or, I mean, we bring up Mike all the time. Guys are still wearing his gear. I mean, Mike is omnipresent. But has the NBA escaped the shadow of Jordan more so than golf has escaped Tiger's shadow?
Well, Tiger's still like golfing, and people are still holding on to whenever you hear of Tiger having a good Thursday, everybody's like revving up for what they think Sunday is going to be. You know what I mean? Despite the fact that Tiger's like 68 years old. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. But with Michael, I think it's monoculture. It's the fact that the NBA blew up right around the time that Michael came to relevance. It was the NBC factor. It was the commercialization of it. And the fact that aesthetically, we've never seen a more effective basketball player play in such a pretty and maniacal way at the same time. Like, you can't play like Michael Jordan. Like, Kobe Bryant does a good imitation of Michael Jordan, but it's like Diet Coke compared to Cherry Coke. You know the taste when you taste it. You know what I mean? Like, I think Michael, for the NBA, he's their North Star. Everything that we think of basketball players today, fairly or not, we compare to what Michael Jordan would have done or what Michael Jordan did. In some ways, I feel like it's held the NBA back. I think there's a way that you can honor Michael and say that he's the greatest player we'll ever see until someone takes it, and not hold people to an impossible standard. Because if he's the greatest player we'll ever see, that means nobody will reach it. So you should stop trying to compare and bring people up there. I'm guilty of it too, because when I saw Anthony Edwards move, like water through the floor, I'm like, he moves like Michael, not plays like him, but just moves like that man in a certain way. So we're all guilty of it, including me.
He's all aboard the Cooper Flagg hype train. Choo-choo. Vincent, great appearance. Have fun out there. Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me.
That's Vincent Goodwill, NBA senior reporter for Yahoo Sports. All right, brought a little noise there. Yes, Paul?
What a great debut performance. I can't believe, Marvin mentioned him the other day, and what a great performance.
Yeah.
First time having him on.
Yeah. He brought some noise there. I appreciate that. All right.